How do you pass the bar exam? It's a simple question, but it has a lot of answers, and sometimes it seems very complicated. In this video, I'm going to look at 3 simple techniques that you can use that will improve your performance and help you pass. I'm Jackson Mumey, the owner and founder of Celebration Bar Review, and for the past 25 years, I've helped thousands of bar takers, people just like you, to make their next bar exam the last bar exam. If you want to know more about how we do that, check out the links on this page after this video. In this video, I want to tell you 3 very simple things that you need to do in order to pass your bar exam. How do I know that? Well, for 25 years, I've been teaching people to use these 3 techniques over and over again, and they work. So let's just jump right in. Tip number 1, if you're going to pass the bar exam, you have to give yourself enough time to study. Now, what does that mean in reality? For most people, it's going to take 250 to 300 hours of total study time. That includes reading the outlines, listening or watching the lectures, doing the practice questions, and then doing your review at the end. The whole start to finish is 250 to 300 hours. And that's true whether or not you're just graduating from law school, or if you've been away from law school for many, many years, whether you've taken a bar exam at some point in the past, or you've never taken one before, or maybe you've taken one and not passed. It's still the same. The people that pass spend 250 to 300 hours in study. Now, if you think about that number in terms of daily or weekly study, the optimum way to study is 4 to 6 months for about 15 to 20 hours a week. That's the best, and we've seen that repeated over and over again. The reason it works the best is because we now know that learning happens most effectively not when you cram and memorize, but when you have something that's called spaced or stepped repetition. Now, this concept simply means taking small chunks of material, deliver them over a longer period of time with a lot of repetition built into it. That's the way the human brain is wired to learn material. And if you don't believe that, just watch how children learn. But that's what a course like ours does. Now, compare that to the traditional big box bar review where you're sitting in a hotel room or a classroom watching videos for 6 or 7 weeks. That obviously is not spaced repetition. That's a cram course, and it's actually one of the least efficient ways to study. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, but it's what everyone does, so it must be good. Well, actually, no, it isn't. The pass rates are dramatically lower for courses that are structured that way. In fact, across the country, we see fewer than 50% of all bar takers passing the bar using that approach. The problem is that it's just been around for such a long time, and it's become the norm, not because it was good, it was just omnipresent. So if you're thinking about how do you pass the exam, the first thing I would suggest that you do is sit down and think about the time you actually have available. How do you fit in that 15 to 20 hours a week? Now, if you're less than 4 months away from your bar exam, then you're obviously going to have to give it more time. Can that work? And the answer is absolutely it can, but there is a point of diminishing returns. In general, what we've discovered over 25 years is that when someone is studying more than 50 hours a week, 5-0, we tend to see less effective results. In other words, if you're studying 7 days a week and you're studying for 7 or 8 hours a day, that's probably going to be too much. You're on the verge of not getting much productivity out of a significant number of those hours. So you want to be able to back that off and go back and give yourself some reasonable time off, some study opportunities, some recreation opportunities, time with your family, and if you've got a job, probably some time at the office or at work. The sooner that you can begin then, the better off you're going to be. You can see how that math works out. So the first step is to make sure that you have enough time. Now, related to that, I would also say that there are those people that feel like they need more than 300 hours. That is a fallacy. You do not. Most of that extra study time is spent actually memorizing, which is not an effective way to study. And we've done all sorts of videos and have material about that. But suffice to say for our purposes today that that is an inefficient and ineffective way to study. And therefore, anything over 300 hours also provides diminishing returns. All right, well, the second step is closely correlated to the first, and that is that you need to have a plan for study. Now, I often see people who come into this process, they're very excited, they jump right in, but they have no idea exactly what they're going to do, and then they burn out. They overstudy, they overwork, or they get distracted, and they say, I'll put it off till later. In the process of waiting until later, they push themselves into a time-based corner so that they can't get out. So you need to have a plan. Now, the plan that you should use really optimally should come from a qualified bar review. That is to say, somebody that's been down the road before, that's taken people over this journey. I think of us as being sort of like Lewis and Clark. I mean, we've made the journey over the mountains. We know where to stop for the night and where to feed the horses and where the dangers are along the path. When it comes to the bar exam, you need somebody that knows what to study, how much you have to study, how long to spend studying each piece of it. That's why I get particularly nervous when I talk to people who are using a supplement just for the multi-state, for example, or they're doing something just for the state exam or something of that nature. What ends up happening is they get out of balance. Now, in the early days of bar review, the way that worked was that people would take the big box bar review and then add a multi-state supplement known then as PMBR, and it caused all kinds of problems. They got way out of whack with their studies between multi-state and state. Today, the names have changed, but the concept is exactly the same. They take the big box and now they take Adaptabar, and they still end up with the same problem. It's way out of balance. You need a course that actually can cover everything, not just one part. And so that's why we give you multi-state and state materials, and we balance them out and give you everything you need, so no supplement is necessary. But the point is to have balance and a plan that will help you work consistently from start to finish. Now, the purpose of a plan is that when you know not only what you're going to be studying and how long you're going to be studying, but what the overall look and feel of the study is, you'll have a much better vision of where you're headed. That tends to make for more effective and efficient studying. In other words, if I know where I'm going with something, it's a little easier to see how it fits into the bigger picture, how it's going to work, and what makes it effective for you. Now, in a course like ours, we'll give you a study plan, and the study plan that we'll give you will be essentially designed for your course and your particular set of circumstances. Again, I get a little nervous when people start using generic study plans. There's a cute little progress button on their computer, and they say, oh, I'm at 30% on the bar. Well, that might be meaningful, but it might not. It just depends on who you are and what you're doing and when you're doing it and how you're working. So I think you want to be pretty careful about the plan you get and make sure that it's appropriate to your particular needs. One other point. There's no reason that you have to study torts Tuesday at 2 p.m. because everybody else is doing it. That's just silly. Study when you want, where you want, and set up your studies in a way that give you flexibility. That's why we set up our study schedule to be really more focused on an hour at a time, and here's how many hours it takes to get through an assignment. That gives you the ability to work at your own pace, and for most people, that's not only more convenient, it's more effective. So, to recap where we are so far, step number 1 was to make sure you have enough time to study. Step number 2 is that you have to have a plan for studying. Don't go at it haphazardly. The third item, and now you're going to see that all of these are really connected, is that you need a competent coach or mentor to guide you through the process. Now, I recognize that some of you watching this are flat out brilliant. You are at the top of your class in law school, you are the editor of the law review, you're managing partner of your white shoe law firm, you clerked for X, Y, and Z federal judge. I get that. You went to a big box law school, and now you're taking a big box bar review. You can stop watching right now. You don't need this. But for the rest of us who are mere mortals, who didn't go to the big box bar review and the big box law school, and by the big box law school, what I really mean is if you were in the top half of a top 20 law school, you're going to pass the bar. Just relax, you're fine. But that's a very small number of bar takers around the country. And for everybody that wasn't in the top half of a top 20 law school, the world looks really, really different. And those of you who are watching who fall outside of that very narrow group of people, you're regular, smart people. You went to law school, that was good, and you got out of law school, that's even better. You took an exam, hopefully you passed, but maybe you didn't. The reality, however, is that without competent coaching, it's pretty tough to figure out what you need to do. The bar exam has gotten decidedly more difficult over the last few years. It's no longer possible to just self-study your way through this and show up at the exam and be successful, unless you're one of those top half of the top 20 law school people. Okay, so self-diagnosis, in my experience, is not terribly useful. I've discovered over the years that most regular bar takers are myopic. They either tend to put themselves down unnecessarily, or they have inflated opinions of their own ability. I found it's really helpful to have someone who's objective, a third party, who can look at your work, look at your pacing, look at the progress you're making, and say, you need to speed up here, slow down here, we need to focus on this area or ignore this other area. The truth is that the big box bar reviews can't do that. They don't want to do it. It's not part of their purpose. Their purpose is to deliver information, and they do that reasonably well. The purpose of a course like ours is to provide you with personalized assistance. Here's the way I think of it. A big box bar review is like going to a big box hardware store. You know the kind. You walk in and all you need is one little part, and you say, where do I find that? And somebody says, aisle 27. And you go to aisle 27 and there's stuff up to the ceiling and a disinterested employee who says, yeah, you got to get up on the ladder to get it. Okay, great. They've got everything, but it's not very helpful and certainly not very friendly and not very efficient. On the other hand, if you take that same piece and you go into a local, I'll call it a helpful hardware store, and you say, hey, Jackson, I need this. And I say, yeah, okay, I've got that, but why do you need it? Oh, you're going to do that project? Well, here's a good way to do that project, and here's what else you need, and here's how it might work together. You see the difference between those two things. So the point that I want to make about all this is that there's the difference between delivering products and information and delivering mentoring, teaching, coaching, and guidance. And that's the way that we do it. You know, I'm supported by a wonderful staff of all former students who do our editorial work. They assist me with group coaching calls. They help with answering questions from students. And they do all of that amazing work. But I'm the one that does the teaching because I've learned over the years that I know more about this process than most bar takers do. And that by sharing that experience, by telling you based on what I know works and what doesn't work, where you can put your focus and where you can put your energy and make your studies productive. Now, if that's the kind of assistance that you're looking for, then we're the right place to be. Find a course where you can get the kind of help that you need that's affordable for your budget and what you're looking for. But the point I want to make in this video today is that you want to be certain that you're getting real coaching. You're talking to somebody who's got real bona fides, that they aren't just doing this as a side hustle or a gig. They didn't just start a few weeks or a few months ago. They've actually got their own copyrighted course materials. They've helped at least several hundred, if not several thousand people by now, and you can find out something about them and you can see their track record. Now, I think we qualify pretty well on all of those accounts, obviously, but not everybody that's out there really does, and you want to be careful about that. Don't get caught up in thinking that because somebody's trying to make an extra $50 on the side, trying to tutor bar takers, that they can help you really pass the bar. In my experience, that doesn't work very effectively at all. So when you put all three of these items together, giving yourself enough time, having an appropriate plan, and having a coach with the experience to teach and guide you through the process, that is the way to be successful on the bar exam. Now, does that eliminate the need to study or know the law or be prepared? Of course not. But those three things will get you the most prepared, the most ready, and the most able to succeed on the bar.